So while there's not any live guests, I've taken a bunch of questions from things people have asked or others out there, and I'll just sort of go through a little virtual coaching, ask some questions, and then most importantly, how to overcome them. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, 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 welcome. You know what time it is. It's time for Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. E is in the house. Welcome, welcome, my friends. So excited to be with you. Always want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. It's always fun. I'm at the gym today and I'm doing my workout and I forgot some of my protein drinks. So I go over to get a protein shake and there's a guy standing there and he looks at me and goes, "Are you Eric Cole?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you half dressed because I'm in my gym gear. I don't have all the stuff on." And he's like, "Dude, I just love your podcast. I've been listening to it. I'm still in the security engineer phase, but it's using me to help guide and see where I want to go." And I'm like, "You know something? That's why I do this. That's why I spend all this time. I don't charge you for any of this because I just love helping people. That to me is sort of one of my purposes, my traits sort of ingrained with me. I just love helping people, caring for people, and giving you knowledge and information because guess what? The world needs a lot of smart people out there, right? My mission, my purpose is to secure cyberspace, but we need a lot of folks out there. I can't do it alone. So I just appreciate you listening. I appreciate you, those that sort of come up to me and let me know that it is making a difference because that's what matters at the end of the day. Right? Helping other people is what really matters. So what I want to do on this episode is do a little virtual coaching. Right? I love doing my coaching. That's my specialty. I have many tiers. Right? You can join the CISO Cert where you get monthly group coaching. I also have my private clients where I do one-on-one coaching. But I just wanted to give you a little exposure to what that looks like. So while there's not any live guests, I've taken a bunch of questions from things people have asked or others out there, and I'll just sort of go through a little virtual coaching, ask some questions, and then most importantly, how to overcome them. So the first one, Eric, I have the CISO title, but I'm not really included in any of the meetings. Right? I'm not really included in the board meetings or the executives or anything else. It's sort of like they gave me the title, but they just needed somebody for SEC regulations or for compliance or for other reasons, but they don't really view me as one of the executives. So, okay. First question, and I know the answer if you're already telling me this, but where do the executives sit and where do you sit? My bet is if you feel disconnected, if you feel like you have the title, but you're not really included in the gang of chief officers, right? The CEO, COO, CFO, all sort of hang out, get together, communicate, and you're sort of that odd duck that's not really part of the team. My guess is you don't sit with them. My guess is you sit with IT. And that right there is first problem, because here's the reality. Proximity is power. When you are near people, there's a communication and energy that doesn't happen when you're away. This is why as a business owner, as somebody who's worked in various offices in various areas for over 30 years, I will tell you, work from home is a disaster. It is killing corporate culture. It is killing companies. It is killing people. We are meant to be interactive. We are meant to be around other humans. Do you know how much interaction and conversation happens just because you're in the office? Just because you run across somebody? Do you know how many business deals I do at the gym? because I run across somebody and physically run across them and they're like, oh, Eric, crazy thing. Your name came up a couple of weeks ago in conversation. And we were saying how we need to bring you in on this deal or help you out with this deal. And I just didn't get time to call you or text you. But now that you're here, do you want to go grab coffee after the workout and we can talk about the deal? And I've closed sometimes $1 million deals. Now, here's the question. If I didn't run into them in the gym, the probability of them really calling or texting and us interfacing and doing that probably would have been slim to none. But because they saw me, we interfaced, they saw the energy, I was able to show excitement. We were able to go in and work and close those deals. And the same thing, in an office, if you are working from home by yourself, there are going to be conversations. There are going to be discussions. There's going to be decisions that cannot be made over Zoom. There's going to be something, if you are in the office, and I do this all the time with my team, they're in the office. I walk by and go, hey, I have this question for you. But if they weren't in the office, I probably wouldn't have texted them or Zoomed them or something else. So proximity is power. When you are around people, conversations happen that cannot happen if you are apart. So if you are sitting with IT in another floor or another building, and all the executives are in the executive suite, and you are not in the executive suite, you are going to be at a disadvantage. You are going to be left out of meetings. But Eric, they won't switch my office. I've tried to switch offices. I've asked if I could get an office there, and they're like, no, you need to be with your team. You need to be with the technical. There's no room up here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, easy solution. Go to the executive assistant for the CEO. And I've done this. It's great. And they always have executive conference rooms. They usually have 2 or 3. And they're usually right outside the offices of all the execs. So I go in and I ask each morning, hey, I'm just wondering, are any of the executive conference rooms available today? Are any of them available or free, like they're not booked or nobody's in there? And usually 1 or 2 days a week, they're like, oh yeah, from 2 to 4 today, there's no meetings going on. And I'm like, are all the other execs in the office today? And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, great. Can I book that conference room from 2 to 4? Since no one else is using it, can I just come by and work there? And what you do is you actually go either to that building or that floor, and you work in that room with the door open from 2 to 4. And I will guarantee, I've done this. I've done this over and over and over again, and I can guarantee what's going to happen. One of the other execs are going to walk by and they're going to be like, oh, Eric, what are you doing here? And I'll be like, oh, I just had some time and I just wanted to come over here just in case you had any questions or needed to go over anything with me. I just wanted to make sure I made myself available being in the locale. And they're like, oh, well, that's so funny because I actually had this question that I was going to ask you, but I just didn't have the time to actually call you or email you. And you have this great conversation. And then if you want to do second level, you just send out an email. You say, hey, no pressure, but I just want everyone to know that I'm going to be in the executive suite working from 2 to 4 today if anyone wants to go over anything regarding cybersecurity. And you start doing that where you put yourself in proximity to the other executives. Give it time. Right? I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. Normally it does. Normally after 1 or 2 times, magic happens. But give it a month or 2. And you'll start to see how everything changes. And then what has happened to me personally, when I was CISO, CTO, all those other roles, and I started doing that, after 2 or 3 months, they were like, wow, we're getting so much value out of this. They're like, Eric, we know you need to be with the team, but we were wondering, if we gave you an office here, could you work 2 days out of the executive suite and 2 days with your team or some other combination of it? And all of a sudden, things start shifting. So number 1 rule in life, being a chief information security officer, take 100% responsibility. Stop complaining, stop blaming, stop pointing fingers, and take 100% responsibility to solve any issue. And in that case, you are fixing it. You can blame them and say, they're not letting me sit with them, or you can take action and start sitting there and giving yourself proximity to them. So that's solution one. Solution two, Eric, it doesn't seem like they listen to me. I feel like when I am in the limited meetings with them and I give advice or feedback or other details, nobody really listens, nobody really pays attention, and nobody really takes action on what I'm saying. Once again, you have to diagnose the problem, but I'm pretty sure I can get these 100%. Problem with this, you're not speaking the language. You're not speaking English. This is the problem with technical people becoming CISOs. This is the problem with world-class security engineers that have done something for 8 or 10 years, and they decide to become a CISO. You have so been accustomed to talking tech and being a geek, and that's what you do all day long, that you don't even realize it. But when you go and speak to the executives, you're speaking tech. They don't know tech, they don't care tech, and they're not going to understand tech. So if you're in meetings and you're losing their attention, if they're on their cell phones typing, if nobody is asking questions, if nobody is following or listening to what you're saying, it's real simple. You are not speaking the language of business, you're speaking the language of security, and they don't understand the language of security. World-class CISOs are world-class translators. You can speak business, you can speak techie, and you can do it on the fly. That's one of my skills that folks are amazed with. When I go to my clients, and this actually has happened, I can get in the elevator with a program manager that's building out a new e-commerce site. And I can talk e-commerce tech, security, HTML buffer overflow, secure coding, all those factors. Get off the elevator, run into the CEO, and I can talk business. Okay, what are the numbers and margins looking like? What are any impacts that we need to be aware of that security or technology can help address? I can then walk over to the security department and delve into false positive, false negatives, and tuning of their SIM solution to better detect and respond to attacks. That's what you have to become a master of. You have to become a master of knowing your audience, knowing their language, and being able to speak their language on the fly. And once again, indicators of that are they engaged? Are they paying attention? That's positives. Are they distracted? Are they texting on their phone? Are they trying to walk away from you as quick as possible? Those are negatives. So you want to make sure you know the language of the person you're speaking to and you properly engage. Another great solution is always start a conversation with a question. And the question is always some variety of how can I help you? Now, it can take many different forms. You might not want to go up to your CEO and say, how I can help you. So the CEO, you might go up and say, hey, do you have any concerns with cyber? I'm just curious, is there anything that is sort of keeping you up at night when it comes to cyber or technology that I can help you with? Are you concerned? I know it's all over the news, ransomware. Are you concerned about ransomware or extortion attacks to the business? And always start with a question. Because what that does is that lets you build rapport. That lets you align, and not only that, it lets that person set the direction of how you can help them. Now, all of a sudden, when they give you an answer, you're helping them as opposed to telling them what you want to know. So many times, CISOs are so excited about something that they want to tell other people about it, and here's the reality. They could care less. They have a problem, they have an issue, and you're not solving it. So you want to switch and change that rapport. Next big challenge. Next question I get all the time is, Eric, we keep getting more and more things pushed on us, and we don't have the resources. We don't have the budget. Our budget and our team has not changed in 3 years, but the amount of responsibility and amount of challenges and tasking has tripled. How do I deal with that? Once again, all of these things are various forms of communication, but I'm just honing in on the specifics. Push back. Why aren't you telling them you're overloaded? Let me ask you a question. If your team and budget is 100% saturated, you're working 10 to 12-hour days, your team's sometimes working evenings and weekends, you are overburdened, and you can't get the current job done, and somebody comes up to you and says, oh, we're giving you a new responsibility, and you say, okay, who's at fault there, my friends? Why in the world did you say okay? Why in the world didn't you go, whoa, whoa, whoa? Can I sit down and talk with you? Listen, I'll do whatever you want. I love this company. I believe in what we're doing, and I'm here for the long haul. But let me just explain to you. Here's the current team and resources we have, and here's what we're currently doing. We are 110% saturated. We are overworked. We are not even getting all of this done, and probably need to remove a few of these items off our plate. So, if you want to give me this new tasking, that's okay, but I would like your input and guidance and direction. What items should we remove? What items can we no longer do? Because we can't do all of it. So if you want to put a new task on us, that's cool, but you're going to have to take one of the other tasks off our plate. It is one of the most powerful, it is one of the most respectful conversations. I've never, ever seen an executive get mad having it, but for some reason, CISOs are afraid to do that. They just sit there and take the punches. They just sit there and say, yes, yes. And I'm like, I've been coaching CISOs, and I sit in meetings where they're overwhelmed and they start giving them all this new tasking, and I'm like kicking them going, what are you doing? Why are you saying yes? There's no possible way you can handle this. There's no possible way you're going to be able to do this. So why? Sorry, I'm coughing a lot, so I have a cough drop stuck on my cheek to sort of keep the cough managed on that, but it got caught in my gum line there, so sorry about that. But just trying to minimize coughing, and I found cough drop therapy seems to work. So the question is, why are you agreeing? Why are you agreeing to something you know you can't do? Why are you agreeing to something that's creating more stress? Here's the reality. Most CISOs are stressed, but because they're creating their own stress. Because they are not communicating and they are not telling other people what to do or how to handle it. So next big challenge. Eric, everyone in the organization is doing their own thing. Shadow IT, shadow security is on the rise. Nobody's listening to us. Nobody's following what we're saying, and we have no control. If you're not familiar with shadow IT or shadow security, essentially it's where every department just does their own thing. It's so easy to buy a domain name. It's so easy to set up web hosting. It's so easy to set up your own website. Shadow IT will be where one department goes, buys a domain name, sets up a website, and starts selling or soliciting information from customers without IT security or anyone in the organization knowing or being aware of it. Couple of ways to fix that. First, the model of your organization must change. The way many organizations are set up, I have no clue why it's set up this way. I have no clue why anybody thought this was a good idea, but here's the reality. In most organizations, the vice presidents, the directors, have all the authority, yet cybersecurity has all the responsibility. And we see this. What happens in an organization where a department does something and security says, too risky? You cannot do that. It's way too risky. I'll give you ways for fixing it, but this is not acceptable. And you tell everybody. And they go, we're not going to spend the extra money on fixing it. We don't have the extra resources. We're doing it anyway. Go away. And then a breach happens, costs the company millions of dollars, and what do? They fire the vice president who didn't listen to security, right? No! They fire security. And you're sitting there going, what the bleep? How the heck could this be happening? And it's because there's this broken model. Executives think that cybersecurity should be 100% responsible for security, and if a breach happens, they're the ones that are liable and should get fired. But the reality is, nobody's listening to them. Nobody is doing what they're supposed to. And once again, it is easy to get frustrated as a CISO. It's easy to point fingers and say, I did the right thing, they didn't listen. But here's the reality. The executives are unaware. Giving your executives the benefit of the doubt. If they knew the truth, if they knew that when this vice president was going to roll out this system, you told them it was too risky, you told them they couldn't do it, and you gave them a very reasonable solution for fixing it, and they gave you the middle finger and did it anyway. If they knew all that factual data, do you think they still would have fired you? Do you still think they would have got rid of you? Probably not. And I'll tell you probably not, because I've went to them after the fact and told them the truth in companies I've been advising and consulting for, and they are shocked. They are amazed. So once again, if you want to be world-class CISO, really if you want to be world-class in any area of your life, but I'm focusing on life of a CISO, so we'll go there. 100% responsibility. You have to own it. Why aren't you going to the execs and telling them? Why aren't you giving them a list of unapproved risks? Why aren't you going to them and telling them what's happening? Communication, communication, communication. This is an issue. Most security engineers are mega super geeks and are great. Most mega super geeks are not great at communication. Tend to be more introverts, tend to be more quiet, tend to be great at solving complex problems and saving the world, but not actually talking out, communicating, or pushing back on things. So what made you really, really good as a security engineer, if you now become a CISO, is not going to make you very good. You have to communicate. You have to stick up. You have to take responsibility for everything that's happening. So a couple of ways you do that. First, every company must have a risk posture that's approved by the executive team. What is the acceptable level of risk? And then everyone must know what that is, because now it sets guardrails. Security is not the people that say, no, 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 no. You're now telling every organization, listen, this is acceptable. If you are operating within these guidelines, it's cool. You can do it. But if you're going outside, that is unacceptable. And you either need to take full responsibility for it because you're violating the rules and guidelines we set up, or we would be happy to show you how to reduce that risk to an acceptable level. And then every time somebody decides to accept that risk, you put that on an unacceptable risk and you present that to the executives every month or every quarter. So now every quarter, the CEO, COO, and board of directors are getting a list. Here's a list of cybersecurity risks that the department head decided to accept, ignore security. These are outside or agreed to risk acceptance or risk profile, and we just want to make you aware. We just want to make you aware that they are taking and accepting this risk on behalf of the company, and based on the risk posture we agree to, this is considered unacceptable. And what will actually start to happen when you do that is 8 times out of 10, when that gets presented, the execs are going to be like, no, no, no. Why are we doing this? And they're going to go to that vice president and be like, what are you doing? Why are you putting us? This is not an acceptable. And they'll push back. And what happens is, even if it's 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, it happens with enough frequency that all of a sudden everyone starts listening and following security. But if you're in an organization where it's that old model, where the business units can do whatever they want, they have all the authority, and you have all the responsibility and get blamed and fired when breaches happen, you need to fix that. You need to fix that as soon as possible. Next challenge. Eric, I'm new to an organization. I'm a new CISO. But I seem to come in and push the team, push everyone away from me. and I'm sort of isolated from my team. Once again, these are questions I can almost guarantee the answer. Most CISOs, when they come in, there's a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. There's a little bit of the devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a steel stove, right? They have this little chip that they want to prove their power and their expertise and their knowledge. So what do they typically do? Worst possible thing that any new CISO can do is they come in and they poo-poo on everything and try to change it. Why are we using vendor X for this? Vendor X sucks. We should use vendor Y. Get vendor Y. And basically, they want to change everything. Step back. Solution, how do you overcome this? First, did you ever think who created that current architecture? It wasn't the previous CISO. It was the previous team that now reports to you. So this current infrastructure is the baby of the current people that report to you. So if you come in and you start saying the babe is ugly and we need to change everything, alter everything, and modify everything, of course your team's going to be alienated. Of course your team's going to be frustrated. And of course your team's going to be angry at them, because not only are you telling them that everything they did is wrong, but you are now disrupting and making a ton of work for them. And remember, these are people that are already overworked. Worst possible thing, if you are a new CISO, for the first 90 days, your job is to understand. Your job is to meet and understand the current environment, the current architecture, what works, what doesn't work, what are challenges. Get your team on your side. Ask your team questions. What are the big things you would change? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are concerns you have? If we're putting together a new plan and a new approach, what are the things you would alter or modify? Get their impact. Spend time with the other directors, vice presidents. Build rapport. Understand. Don't criticize. For 90 days, you're asking questions, you're understanding, and you're supporting. You're not criticizing, you're not putting down, you are not pointing fingers, you're not blaming anybody. Your sole job is to understand, get integrated, and get known in the environment, to be trusted, to have people talk to you, to have your team talk to you, your vice president talk to you, and others talk to you. If you can get that rapport built in 90 days, you're going to be successful. Then you can start altering, then you can start making changes, then you can start modifying things within the organization. Final thing I'll cover as we wrap up this episode. Any world-class CISO must have the conversation with the executives that 100% security doesn't exist. It boggles my mind, it blows my mind that we're in this current day and age and there are still executives that think breaches are not going to happen. They still think that an incident or a compromise is a sign of weakness, and they actually fire the CISOs when it happens. If you don't want to be on a death sentence where you're going to get fired in a certain number of months because incidents will happen, you must have that conversation with your executives. You must make them fully aware that embrace the breach. My job is not to make us 100% secure. We would go out of business. 100% security means no functionality. My job is recognizing that we won't be 100% secure, but minimizing the frequency of breaches and the impact they have. Breaches will happen, but the amount, how frequent they happen and the amount of damage will be controlled and minimized. You must have that conversation and you must get aligned. If you do these things, you are on the road to being a world-class CISO. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week.